It's certainly an honor to be here tonight with you all, and it's also my honor to help moderate and lead the discussion from this very distinguished panel. As the senior lobbyist for Farm Bureau, as your lobbyist, for those of you that are Farm Bureau members, these are the individuals, along with Senator Pyle and Deputy Secretary Bontrager, those are the individuals that I call when I get a question from you, or there's an issue with my farm, there's this regulatory holdup. What can you do? How can Farm Bureau help me? And these gentlemen up at the table and those gentlemen out in the audience, those are my first call just to say, hey, have you heard of this issue? What can we do to help? So it is an honor to be here, and I'm sure I will learn a few things from the panelists we have this evening. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the Waters of the U.S. or WOTUS rule and give you a quick and dirty background. As Donna mentioned, the Clean Water Act passed Congress back in 1972. So it has been on the books for a generation, 2 generations almost now. And I think there is very good case law and regulatory know-how, if you will, from the federal government, but more importantly down to the states. Kansas, whether it's KDA or KDHE, they know what is a federal water and they know what is a state water. So when we have rules and regulations that come out of the federal government that do a wholesale radical change like we see with this latest WOTUS proposed rule, it is very eye-catching and draws our attention very quickly. The current proposed WOTUS rule actually came out in 2 different parts. In March, there were roughly 350 pages that were published on the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers website. Then in April, in the Federal Register, where all federal regulations have to originate, there was roughly a 47 or 48 page document that was published. And that is now what is open for public comment. That public comment is open until October 20. And if you haven't submitted comments either electronically or handwritten out a letter, I certainly encourage you to sign the Ditch the Rule comment card that is in front of you today. Just have to flip it over. Please put your name and address, and if you'd be so kind to put the county that you're from. So most of you are here from Jackson County, so that should be easy. But it really helps us as Farm Bureau when we're going to submit. Over 10,000 of these comment cards have been printed. I hope we have a 100% return rate. But when we submit those comment cards coming up later this month, we're going to make sure that we pool those with the other Farm Bureaus across the state and hopefully really gain some traction and some input with EPA. The other comment I just briefly touched on, and I'm sure Greg will probably go in a little bit more depth with it, but the interpretive rule. It was a second, completely separate comment period and rule that was proposed. EPA is treating it as guidance document. And basically what that means for internal Washington, D.C. gobbledygook is that it was final the day it was issued. And EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, and in this case, USDA, Natural Resources Conservation Service, is actually treating that as the rule of law on the ground right now. If we go back to the 1972 Clean Water Act, the first 4 bullet points up here, I think those are fairly well understood and people know where they shake out. If you're floating down the Missouri River, that's a navigable water. It's waters of the United States. But under the proposed rule that came out in March and April, numbers 5, 6, and 7 are all new. And I'll go ahead and read those off because I know it's probably a little hard to read in the back. Number 5, all tributaries of water. Number 6, all waters, including wetlands adjacent to waters identified in 1 through 5. And then my personal favorite, I have no idea what this means besides every single drop of water that falls from the sky. Number 7, on a case-specific basis, other waters, including wetlands, that alone or in combination with other similarly situated waters in the region that have a significant nexus to a water identified in 1 through 3 above. That truly is the catch-all, and that's why Farm Bureau and KLA and other ag groups and quite frankly other groups all across the nation, whether you're the Association of Counties or you're a public health official or a golf course superintendent, those numbers 5 through 7 really catch you by surprise, and you say, wait a minute, what water would not be included in this proposed rule? If we pull out that number 5 and we look at the definition that EPA gives us of a tributary, it is a water body physically characterized by a bed, bank, and ordinary high water mark. A tributary water does not lose its tributary status if there are man-made breaks, such as bridges, culverts, pipes, dams, so long as the bed, bank, and ordinary high water mark can be seen. And then also a tributary can be natural, man-made, man-altered, and this is straight from the rule. It includes rivers, streams, lakes, impoundments, canals, and ditches. So do not believe what the EPA administrator tells you that they are not intending to regulate ditches. It is explicitly put in their proposed rule. I'll show you a couple of quick pictures that Farm Bureau has taken over the years, just as we travel the countryside. Both of these examples, they have a bed, bank, and ordinary high water mark. They could be jurisdictional as a water of the U.S. under the proposed rule. Same with these two pictures. They have a bed, bank, an ordinary high water mark. Now, if this is the middle of your farm field, it looks like they are having some erosion problems, which we probably need to get the Division of Conservation out there to help them with. But those would also be jurisdictional under the proposed WOTUS rule. The final slide I'd like to show you, here's some additional pictures. We probably need more information here. We need a panoramic photo, or we need to actually go do an on-site visit, which you, the farmer, you, the rancher, the producer, are going to love when EPA or the Army Corps of Engineers comes out, knocks on your door, and says, hey, I want to go see this. Is there a bed, bank, or ordinary high water mark? And if there is, all of a sudden you're jurisdictional. But really the point I want to hammer home here before I turn it over to Tom and Greg or whoever wants to go next is, why is this important? Why is EPA seriously going to come out and regulate my farm? I don't want to be the staffer or the lobbyist at Farm Bureau that says no, and then the very next day, EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers comes out. I also don't want to be the staffer that says no, and then all of a sudden Tom from the KDHE and the state regulatory side, it's basically an unfunded mandate, and EPA says we don't have the man hours, we have to have our state do it. So then the state comes out and knocks on your door. But if they do find you, they, being the federal government in this case, the EPA, finds you in violation of the Clean Water Act, it is a fine of up to $37,000 per day per violation. So if you have multiple parcels of land or you have multiple violations, whatever you're doing, all of a sudden you can ratchet up 1, 2, 3, 4, a dozen violations. Well, what happens if you do that violation over the course of a week or a month or a growing season? And all of a sudden that $37,000 per day per violation puts you out of business. And we don't want that. So that's why we are fighting on your behalf, making public comments, encouraging you to make public comments either through the comment card or going to the EPA and the Federal Register website to do so. So if you have specific instances where you have been approached or had dealings with the EPA or the Army Corps of Engineers on clean water issues, I'd love to talk to you personally. I'd love to get that or hopefully encourage you to put that into writing at the federal docket, because in the grand scheme of things, I don't see how this proposed rule can go final. I checked today before I came over from Manhattan, and there are 216,000 public comments to date on this very specific issue. But the public comment period is open until October 20th. So I would love for you to get your comments in there, and if we can get enough from Kansas and enough from farm bureaus and livestock associations all across the nation, hopefully we can get 300,000 or more, and I would hope the bulk, or the very majority of those, the bulk of those, would be in opposition to this proposed rule. So it is very important, and with that, I will turn it over to whoever would like to go next.